This is the award-winning Lee Pitts Live.
The award-winning Lee Pitts Live is brought to you by Hodges University. Build the future you at Hodges University.
Southwest Florida, welcome to another edition of Lee Pitts Live here on this April 17th. And man, we got a fabulous show in store for you. I know I say that all the time, but this is the cream de la cream. I got the ministers here, many of the ministers here from the Dunbar community who have been doing just a yeoman's job in healing the community and moving the political process forward to make our community a better place to live. Got the distinct pleasure of getting a chance to talk to Pastor Gregory Ford of First Assembly of Cornerstone. We had a good chance to talk to Dr. William Glover, the senior pastor at Mount Hermon Ministries. And we'll talk to Alexander Fletcher, pastor at Unity Christian Church, Disciples of Christ. Big shout out to Charles Connell. Charles, you're getting publicity, man. Charles Reynolds of the News Press, who wrote this article on Lee Pitts Live. I think he did a pretty good job. Followed me around for about 3 weeks, and I didn't know what was going to come out in the article. Sunday's paper, March 3rd, and you know I'm in the paper a lot. I understand that, but this was a sort of a collector's item for me at the 25th year anniversary. So, big shout out there. I'm gonna go to a break. When we come back, we'll talk to the ministers right here on Lee Pitts Live. Southwest Florida, I'm so thrilled to get him here again. The Reverend Doctor, I love saying this, man. Let me do it, Pastor Glover. The Reverend Doctor, the Right Reverend Doctor William Glover, pastor, Mount Hermon Ministries. I get a chance to, do that. You cool with me? Come on. I've been wanting to do that, man. Hey, Reverend, but in the clergy, when you're a doctor, you put Reverend in the front. Is that like some kind of respect? That's the highest you can get?
Well, yes, it's proper for the Reverend to come first. So
Okay.
It's always Reverend Doctor.
Because I saw that with Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. And in fact, speaking of Martin Luther King, last time I had you on the show, man, people really loved it. You got a chance to talk about King and the clergy.
Yes.
And I told you before that I noticed, from the time when we met, say 20 years ago to now, you really have taken Mount Hermon Ministries, you and everybody there, and really embracing the community, getting out in the community. When I saw you last time, though, and I interviewed you, I didn't ask about the T-shirt. Remember you guys had on all those
Yes.
T-shirts?
Yes.
Tell the TV audience what was written on the T-shirt and what was that all about?
Yes, for the Dr. King Celebration Day, we had blue T-shirts on. We're rebranding the ministry. We're changing our ministry logo from Alive, Fresh, and Strong to having a redeeming influence on the community. Alive, Fresh, and Strong spoke to how we viewed ourselves, but we wanted to rebrand and say something to the community about the type of influence we want to have on the community.
And it has an action component to it, just
Yes.
Yeah, it's like
redeeming,
a move. That's right.
restoring, renewing, reviving, bringing hope, bringing renewal, teaching and training towards bringing change, abundant living. So the idea behind it is no matter what ministry service we provide, that's the effect we want it to have. We want it to have a redeeming influence because ultimately if we can't affect some positive change in the community, we don't believe we're being the hands and the heart of the Lord.
How's that balancing act like to separate, or should there be a separation where you, in your cocoon, in your church, making sure everybody in the church is doing what they need to do and getting what they need to get, and then being concerned about outside of the church?
Well, there is no conflict. The work of the church has always been a call for the body of believers to come together, to fellowship, to exhort, worship the Lord, but also be trained to go out and impact the community through the power of our faith. Through the example of our lives and getting involved in the various social, economic, political activities that impact the community as well.
Crime has been like on the front burner. I see other ministers out there, you're attending these prayer vigils, you're consoling the families, interacting with the police department and all these other things. But is there a solution? How do you stay positive about the future?
There are always solutions to every problem. The question always comes is whether or not there is the will and when there is a will, whether or not there is the level of influence to get solutions implemented. One of the large ministries we have in our church is a justice ministry. We network with 15 other congregations across the county that every year identify a systemic justice issue, and we collectively work together to research it, to find a solution, and then to engage the appropriate public officials in implementing those solutions.
How's that been received?
Very well. All of the public officials we've had dealings with over the past 5 years, from the Lee County School Board with implementing anti-bullying curriculum and reforming their ALC program, to the Fort Myers Police Department, the Sheriff's Department, with increasing the use of civil citations, which spared juveniles unnecessary arrest records, to our action last year with the city of Fort Myers to adopt fair chance hiring practices, so that when people who have served their time, paid their debt to society, try to get reintegrated into the community, they're not discriminated against because they have a felony. So they've actually banned the box from their application.
That is in effect right now.
That is in effect right now. They passed a resolution back in January. Just 3 weeks ago, the city had trainings for all of their managers in their various departments on how to implement that fair chance hiring policy. And so shortly, as positions become available, that hiring policy will be in effect.
What do you have to say to those people who said that banning the box was not a good thing, that that's not going to allow them to be able to properly screen who they are hiring for a job? What was the case that you made for that?
Well, the first thing is that there are always high-risk areas of employment for which felons will not be allowed to work. But then there are other areas, multiple areas, where that felony has nothing to do with the job that is required. My argument was, if in fact we want to reduce crime, then we have to be able to employ people who have paid their debt to society, who want to become productive citizens, and allow them to have an equal opportunity for employment as everyone else. When we lock people out of the employment market, that drives up crime. Mm-hmm. So that policy didn't serve the community, it hurt the community. The other thing where people are misinformed about it is they think that it's robbing somebody else of a job and it's going to a felon. It's not a gimme program. The people who have had felons have to qualify. They have to be the best qualified person. This policy just says that they cannot be discriminated against because of their past. If their credentialing makes them eligible for an interview, they have to be interviewed. If their skill set makes them the best possible candidate, then they should be eligible for hire.
What, back to crime, which has dominated the current pop culture here in Fort Myers, particularly Dunbar, when you as a clergyman and the other clergymen, when you come together, when you pray, when you have these visuals, are you reaching people who really need to be reached with your message?
Well, that's a good question. I think in an indirect sense, when we gather, the body of believers gathers for these prayer vigils, it is to lift the spirit. It is to lift the morale. It is to have a show that the spiritual people in our community care and that we're working together on these issues. So that has great value. The other side of it, as you were aware a couple weeks ago, the Life organization, Lee Interfaith for Empowerment, those 15 congregations that I mentioned earlier, we held what we called a public prayer vigil. And that's where we took the prayer vigil out of the church setting and we went and we parked it at the steps of the state attorney's office. Because some of the problems we're dealing with crime is not only on the side of the criminal doing what criminals do, it is also on systemic problems to investigating and solving those problems in the Fort Myers Police Department and in the state attorney's office. What a lot of people do not realize is that when we're asked about this murder issue, both the police department and the state attorney say if the community would cooperate, if the community would talk. So what is happening is people who've taken oath of office, who've sworn to protect and serve, who've sworn to investigate and solve, are putting the burden of the problem on the community. And the injustice in that is, since the year 2000, 209 murders have occurred. Only 97 have been what they call cleared, arrest, taken to trial, convicted, and or plead. So that is 112 unsolved murders. And if it's a 1-to-1 ratio, and it may not be, but the numbers are still very high, that is 112 murderers still living in the community. They're not in Gateway, they're not in Fiddlesticks, they're not in Gulf Harbor, they're in Dunbar. So there's a lot of fear amongst the community because they don't see arrests being made. They don't see, when arrests are made, enough cases going to trial. We've investigated this issue, and what we have learned is this dynamic is pretty unique to Lee County. Hillsborough, Pinellas, arrest rate, murder to conviction rate are much higher than ours.
I see. Final question, and certainly it's going to get you back here in the future, along with the missus, the First Lady. The current state of the relationship between law enforcement and the Dunbar community is good, bad, or somewhere in between?
I think it's a work in progress. I think it's working towards improving. The clergy in our community are coming together through an initiative being headed by Pastor Gibbons. The clergy response team is filling that void to work with the community to improve relationships with law enforcement. The 21st Century Collaboration has had initiatives towards that end as well, and that work is still taking place. And the Life Organization, which I mentioned earlier, meet with Chief Baker when he was police chief, and now Chief Eves on a regular basis to have discussions on how do we improve relationships, how do we get a grip on stemming the tide of crime in the community.
You got a new book coming out, title, and how do people get it?
Oh, thank you very much. The name of the new book is called Ready for the Harvest: How to Release the Principles of Seed Time and Harvest into Your Life. It's a biblical principle that deals with living a prosperous life, living a fulfilling life. And so I talk about those principles in the book and how do you apply it to your life.
How do they get it?
You can get it right now through Mount Hermon Ministries, 239-334-8075, or mounthermonministries.org. In a couple of months, when I get it back from the publisher, you can get it on Amazon.com or faithfullifepublisher.com.
Okay, did I hook you up?
Yes, you did.
All right,
Thank
bro.
you very much.
Bam. For those who say it can't be done, they're usually interrupted by those like Dr. Glover, the Reverend Dr. William Glover of Mount Hermon, senior pastor of Mount Hermon Ministries, who are doing it. When we come back, we'll get a chance to talk to Pastor Gregory Ford right here on Lee Pitts Live. We'll be right back.